Tenho ishe asi hakusikumbara.
Clive Mukundu, celebrating 50 years of life and 32 years of making music.
Hello and welcome to this very special day, because we will be looking at something that has been bringing a lot of conversations around men and how they have been left out of the conversation with regards to domestic violence, gender-based violence. One topic that a lot of people get to share, but sometimes you get to wonder, do they really understand these conversations that they're having? For the longest of times, women have been at the brunt of this topic, and women being the high statistics, well, according to research. But while we are focusing on women and girls, what are we doing about the men and the boys? Have they been forgotten? And because today is a very special day, we will be marking the launch of a special book, and we'll also be celebrating a very special man who has been on the forefront of speaking on men and boys and how they should not be forgotten. But first things first, I would like to welcome a man who is also at the helm of programs at Padari Men's Forum, Paul Vingi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Monica. How are you?
I'm great. It has been quite a while.
Oh yeah, it has been. It's been a long time.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And with social distancing.
Yeah, I'm sure. We've really, covered that.
Let's talk about the men and the boys. Obviously, Padare, the Men's Forum, has been very critical in terms of the men's voice being heard, not being left behind, and how men are also affected by violence.
All right.
Let's speak on that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I think this is a very interesting event. We're really honored as an organization to be part of this, this process. Maybe basically just to also share that, just to give us a brief background. Formation of Padari was motivated by men who had actually, realized that the society that we live in does not treat men and women the same. And these men were touched. They had a lot of experience in working in development work in government, but they also then realized that the men are always, dominant in the processes or in life, be it at home. They had so much power. But then issues also of gender-based violence were also then coming in. I think this is our 25th year as an organization. The formation of organization also came in around the same time when the Beijing Platform of Conference was also then discussed. So there was also a lot of noise around gender-based violence and women are being mistreated and all those kind of things. So these men then said, look, no matter how much we speak to women, no matter how much we get to engage the women, as long as we leave the boys and the men behind, we will not be able to reach a gender-just society. So basically what has happened is these men then realize that it's important to speak to the boys even from the early stages of school, all the way up until they get to grow up as men, to just reflect on the way we view ourselves as men, the way we view ourselves as boys. In Zimbabwe generally, it's said to be a patriarchal society.
They do say that quite a bit.
Yeah. So,
well, I shouldn't say a bit. It is the narrative.
It is, and it is actually. I think it's true from the experience that we've had with working with men. It's true. We have men that are in positions of power, be it at home, be it in society, be it at church, be it as traditional leadership, be it in government. We have men that are very powerful. And then our conversations then are around how do we then get to use that power in a positive way?
Obviously. How do we?
Yeah, how do we get then to what does it mean for me to be called the head of the house when I'm in the house? What does it mean? So what we've actually realized also is, those conversations are never discussed. We don't get to discuss how we get to use that power when we're in church as a faith leader. We don't get to discuss how we use the power that we have when we're in government. We don't get to discuss the power that we have when we're even in a family setup. What does it mean for me to be called the firstborn in the family, and what is expected out of me? So those conversations are not there. So what we have actually done is then to say, let's bring men and boys together and get to discuss these issues, because interestingly, most as much as women are the main victims of gender-based violence, there are also consequences that men get to go through because of issues to do with violence. We get into situations where we don't have alternatives on how to solve problems. We tend to be violent, and we don't talk to anyone, and no one engages you as a man because you're expected to be macho. We have also been seeing a trend of actually men who are actually getting to be abused, but because they can't talk about it, because the society looks at a man as someone who's powerful. Society looks at a man as someone who can never be challenged, or who has to be perfect in everything that he does. So also because of that, we've also been seeing a trend of men who are actually failing really to be a man.
But are they failing, Paul? Because it's one thing to say society has this sort of bias towards women, but isn't society also failing men and boys? Because they seem to be drowning, closing their ears to that voice, that call for help, to say, look here. I know for most of the time men are said to be the biggest perpetrators of this domestic violence.
True.
But society, you're not paying attention to the challenges I'm having as a boy, as a man.
Sure. I think just like I alluded to earlier, we are having you mentioned society. We're having a system. We have a system where no one wants to concentrate on the men and boys. No one wants to engage them. No one wants to hear their challenges because it's expected. It's just a stamp there to say the moment you're a boy. I'll give an example. Let's say we are in. I'm your brother, you're my sister. We are in probably high school. I've got a football, the soccer ball. Gone out to play with my friends. I get beaten up by my friends, which is it's normal. You can get beaten up by other boys.
Boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys. And then when I come back to the house, and there I am. I'm showing pain. I'm actually crying. Do you realize that I'm actually turned back? I'm told I'm not man enough. Go back. You need to go back. Boys don't cry. Why cry? You know how it is. Unlike if it's a girl, if you're my sister, and then you do the same thing, everyone in the house would want to find out what has happened to her. And they want to make sure that they solve that problem. We have created a system whereby we have said, boys, whenever you have challenges in life, sort it out yourself. Girls and women, when you have issues, cry out loud.
But isn't that also a problem that's also coming from the men? Because in as much as you say boys don't cry, aren't the men also the same people who are fueling this kind of mindset? Because it's one thing for a father or an uncle or a brother to say to a sibling or to a son, to say, you don't cry. Aren't they the same persons who are supposed to also sit back and say, at the end of the day, he's human? Or at the end of the day, he is my son, he has feelings. But how do I make him a man, or how do I make him feel macho, but at the same time be in touch with his emotional side without questioning him?
I think this is where the iron is, to then say men are doing this amongst other men. We are doing it on our own. We don't have anyone else to blame. It's me who's raising a son, telling him to be macho, don't want to listen to me. Don't want him to listen to any advice because I'm saying you're a man. It should just be automatic. So I think this is also the niche or the angle that we're actually getting in as Padari, and I'm sure this is what also we are. The book is also talking about. We need to have that discussion open to say men can be abused, men can also fail. Men are not perfect as well. So we need to start having those discussions so that at least we can address the issues, on both sides. We can raise women and girls in a good way, and that's one of the challenges of our society, where girls are told how to dress, girls are told how to sit, girls are told how to talk, and no one cares about how boys relate to anything. It's just they're just boys, let them,
they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out, whatever it is, let's leave them and do whatever that they do, which is where we're actually then getting to create problems, because then when they go out there, you've nurtured a young girl into a good woman. But then that good woman is then going to meet this Paul who has no idea what life is all about. This Paul who believes he is macho. This Paul who believes everything he says should just be taken, whether it's wrong or it's right. So then it then creates more problems. So this is actually the initiative that we have taken as part of that, which I'm also sure the book is also looking at, to say we need to have that. I remember when I was having a discussion with Mono, when he's saying we need to have that uncle, the uncle that gets to sit the boys down to say this is the way life goes. You are going to face challenges A, B, C, D, and let's discuss. Let's talk about it. Let's also be able to learn from what we have gone through, even as us as the fathers, as the parents. Do I have time as a father to speak to my son about sexuality? Do I have time with my son to talk about issues that are going to affect him in life as he grows up? We don't, as a society. We put our efforts only on women and girls, which is why we are where we are today, because of the way the society gets to relate. We have men. I'm sure over 90% of people that are in prison right now are even men, and they're going there. Some of them, it's because of these issues that we're discussing. They got to a certain point in time when they were stuck, but they did not know what to do. They resort to violence because then they need to show that they are men. So at the end of the day, it's actually destroying societies. But I'm sure with these initiatives, we'll get there.
And I'm sure if we are also to cultivate a culture of reading and having more authors and more artists speaking through their music, and more authors speaking about this, like what we are going to be complementing today, because we have to say Clive Mono Mukundu has been very vocal in terms of speaking for men and boys. He's very vocal about issues to do with gender-based violence, but he says there should be that complementary role to say, we're not saying women and girls are not abused, but we're also saying let's not forget the boys and the men, and why it is an important conversation and an important day, because today this is going to be a beautiful day to launch and celebrate the man and celebrate this book. And we certainly hope that today people will get to talk more about it and also support local and support everything around complementing men and women's efforts for.
True.
So
maybe just to also say, before we also get to launch, I think this is a very wonderful initiative that Mono is taking. And when we speak as organizations, it becomes NGO discussions, it becomes NGO conversations. They're getting donor funds, they just want to speak and all those kind of things. But when you then get to find men like Mono, imagine if we had just 10 men like Mono who will just believe in these issues, and they get to talk about these issues with all the audience that they have. Imagine how many artists have been engaged with Mono.
And the impact
that it would have, and the tone of this book really gets to get us far. And I would also just want to appreciate and thank Mono for this initiative. And I think for Badari it's also an honor, like I said before. We are hoping that these are just the first steps of a long journey that we're going to be working with Mono and other men. Hoping also that fellow men, be it politicians, be it artists, influential people, let's be able to speak out around these issues so that at least no one is left behind.
So at this point in time, you will be doing the honors of launching this amazing book, Man Vacuum, by Clive Mono Mukundu.
Sure.
It's over to you.
Thank you. I think at this point in time, I'm being honored, as we're being honored as an organization, Badari Men's Forum on Gender, to officially launch this book, Men Vacuum, from Clive Mono Mukundu. Yeah, thank you.
I don't know whether I should jubilate. It has been launched. Yes, and given 2020 has been quite a difficult year, we have to say congratulations to him. I mean, with COVID-19, and he's taking the time to say, while we are on lockdown and while we are introspecting with these issues, he introspected further with boys and men's issues, and speak out and be the voice of the voiceless men out there. And we say congratulations and thank you so much, Mono, for Man Vacuum.
Thank you, Mono.
We close again on that vacuum.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Paul, and thank you so much to Padare for the work that you're doing on the programs, the activities. We hope that because we're having the reopening of schools, more of these programs, more of these activities will be had in schools. I know you already have those programs, but we have more of them in schools, in churches, in society, and like we say, charity begins at home. Let the home be a place of love, not a place of violence. Amen. So after we come back, we'll be speaking to the man himself and the birthday boy, Clive Mukundu.
Clive Mukundu, celebrating 50 years of life and 32 years of making music.
Welcome back. After speaking to Paul Vingi from Padare, we want to speak to the man himself, the man we're celebrating today, and also get to understand the book that was launched today, Man Vacuum by Clive Mukundu. So turning 50 years of age and having had 32 years experience in the music industry, this is a great time to be alive, and 2020 having come with so many challenges but coming with beautiful moments such as this. So happy birthday.
Thank you, Ndimbiroga. Can you
happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. Clive, welcome.
Thank you very
happy
much.
Birthday.
Thanks a lot, Monica.
We're talking about your book, Man Vacuum. Let's talk about it. Why this title?
Yeah, I've been noticing all this time that the concentration has been on the girl child for the past few years. And the girl child has been empowered a lot, but the boy child is not prepared to be in a relationship with an empowered girl. The men of today are not empowered to be married to empowered women. So I noticed that the narrative has always been about the negative side of masculinity, and most men these days, they associate the word masculinity with the word toxic. They always, people are always talking about toxic masculinity. The word toxic itself, it evokes a negative feeling. And so most men are sort of like being ashamed of being men. They're being told you're a potential rapist, you're a potential criminal because you're a man. So it's sort of like being born a man is sort of like a disease which you cannot cure by any behavior. So the idea behind the book is to show men and boys the positive side of masculinity, and also the book acts like that uncle that most young men these days they don't have. You suppose these days it's very rare for boys and men to have uncles who teach them about life issues, about marriage. So basically that's the premise of this book.
The premise of the book, Man Vacuum. For the longest of times, we haven't seen a lot of artists coming out to turn into authors. I'm going to take you a bit back to 2018. That was a triple launch where you launched Poor and book. Famous, your second book. And over the years, you've also been celebrated, not only being a musician, but becoming an author in your own right. And an author in your own right, you're now speaking about the boy child, something that has been very close to your heart. How do you feel this book will impact society and how they view the relationships that come with the boy, the man, and how they're viewed by society, how they're treated by society, and how we can close in on some of those gaps and those attitudes towards men?
I think this book, if everybody or anybody reads it with the right attitude and the right mind, it's something that will shed light on problems that are faced by the boy child, by men, and also shed light on the differences between the male gender and the female gender, and how we are supposed to complement. Because people have forgotten that men have got certain weaknesses, and which on the opposite, women are strong in those areas. And women also have got certain weaknesses where men are strong. So this book is just there to sort of like bridge the gap and show the complementary aspects of the differences between the male gender and the female gender, and also shedding more light on the boy child and on the men, to show the world that we also have problems, we also have issues, we are also abused here and there. And there's a chapter in the book where I talk about the sexual abuse that I suffered when I was 12 years of age. It's something that I had never mentioned to anybody. So I thought it would be a very good opportunity for me to talk about it in the book and talk about the negative effects that happened in my life due to that abuse. So basically, it's just there to shed more light on boys' issues. So if people read it with the right attitude and the right mind, there are a number of lessons in this book. I also did a research, read a number of books by prominent authors around the world, people like Jordan Peterson and Bettina Arndt from Australia. Jordan Peterson is from Canada. And also making my debate strong and making my points stronger by also getting other ideas from other authors. So I think it's a book which is very loaded.
Speaking of loaded, let's talk about the contributors to this book.
Okay, yeah, in terms of writing, the introduction was done by a long-time friend of mine, Pastor Emin Chimsoro. He's now based in the States, but we just communicated online, and I sent him the book, the first manuscripts. So he read the manuscripts, and then he wrote the foreword of the book. And then when I wanted to publish the book, I was failing to get the ISBN number. It's a number that all books must have. It's an international number. And here in Zimbabwe, you're supposed to get it at the National Archives. But because of the COVID issues and these pandemic issues, it was difficult to get the number, because they were still sorting out how they were going to work it out online. So a friend of mine who is also an author, Rapson Shumba, he told me you can buy that number online, and he bought it for me. So the ISBN number of this book was bought by Rapson Shumba. And I also would want to mention Blessing Vava. He's an author and a journalist who was based in South Africa. I think he's not based back in Zimbabwe. He's one of the few people who encouraged me to write when I wrote my first book. So basically, those are the contributors I would like to acknowledge.
You spoke of ISB. Is there something to do with publishing? Because one would also want to appreciate who is publishing in this instance. Yeah,
in Zimbabwe at the moment, because of piracy issues, both the books industry has been hit by piracy issues the same way the music industry was hit by piracy issues. So right now, most publishing companies in Zimbabwe, they're now concentrating on school books. So other books, you struggle to get a publisher, and sometimes you get a publisher, but the process is not done very well. So I just thought to myself, instead of me surrendering my rights to a company that will not do justice to the publishing, it's better I just self-publish. So I'm publishing on my own. In fact, all my 3 books, this one is the 3rd one, I've been self-publishing. But the good thing is, starting from this book and the other ones before, they will also be found online. So this book is already online right now. So people in the diaspora can buy the book online. So basically, that's how I'm publishing it. I'm just self-publication.
Let me take you to the book. You actually mentioned Kupusa, Current Men and the Death, our male hunting spirit. This is loaded.
Yeah.
I want to understand, what do you mean here? Because kupusa is a strong term. And it's like demeaning.
Yeah, it is. Because I'm a musician, so this is an idea that came about after speaking. Because I speak to a lot of young men, especially those in the music industry. I noticed that a lot of young men in the music industry, a good number of them, they now lack that male hunting spirit. Because you know, for a woman to go to work is optional. If you are married to somebody who can support the family well enough and you don't go to work, it's optional. And it's something to zero, because you have more time raising the kids, more time looking after the family and so forth. But for a man going to work or looking for money, it's not optional. You have to. Every man has to. But these days we've got a lot of young men who are reaching to our cards.
I was actually going to bring in that issue, which what's your take to there's a term in Nonzi Magaf, guys after women, after ladies with finance.
Exactly.
So there are these men who actually want to marry into rich families or kuga, much older women.
Yeah.
So is this also not fueling the kind of perception?
That's the point. That's the one of the main reason I wrote this book, and there's a whole chapter on that topic. Because right now we've got a lot of guys, especially in the music industry, who are being looked after by rich women, and those type of relationships are not healthy because there is no love. One. And I think all over social media we've been seeing such stories, and usually when the relationships go sour, and then Facebook Live. So by nature, human nature is primitive. You cannot update human nature. By nature, a man is supposed to work. You must have that hunting spirit here. Even women respect that. That's why, you know, even by nature, if a man is financially stable or if a man has got a vision, women are attracted to them. One in the Kwarume, things like beauty is not very much important, but you know, like what they say, women are viewed as sex objects. Men are viewed as success objects. If a man is successful, you are beautiful, you are sexy, just because you are successful. One. So in this book, I'm trying to teach you, don't emasculate yourself by killing your hunting spirit. You must have a hunting spirit. And there are many issues in it. Self-emasculate. Number one, number two, there are a lot of guys who are
is that not coming from the home itself?
Yeah.
Havana role models.
I was not a role model.
Contributor.
Yeah, because right now a lot of guys are now growing up without fathers. And scientists say growing up without a father is one thing that is very dangerous to someone's character. They say that prisons are centers for father-deprived people. If you grow up without a father, you just become rebellious and you're most likely to go to prison. So in this book, I'm encouraging people to try as much as possible to maintain the children's relationship with their fathers, even if you are divorced. Because usually women, they say, no, I don't need him anymore. You might not need him, but the child still needs his father, or the child still needs their father. Because balance, he must have attention ya baba, ne attention ya mai. That one is scientific, and it's human nature. It's primitive. Because we are mammals. Mammals, they learn from each other rather than from instinct. Because a lot of things are through instinct, but as human beings, we are not created that way. We learn from our parents. So these days, most parents, they are not raising children, they are maintaining children. Because if a child says, I want a car, and then you buy the car, I want an iPhone, you buy the
cell
iPhone.
Phone parenting.
Yeah, that's maintaining a child, that's not raising a child. So in this book, I'm encouraging parents to raise children, not to maintain children. You see.
You're also celebrating motherhood. and
Yeah.
you're celebrating stay-at-home moms. Why is that?
Yeah, these days, because of some radical theories that are going around, people are now making fun of stay-at-home moms. It's now something viewed as being less ambitious. One who's, what you do that I'm a stay-at-home mom, but being a stay-at-home mom is a full-time job. If I believe being a stay-at-home mom is something that should be highly paid. Because ukatasa vanokura namai vanonga vachienda kubasa. I'm not criticizing women vanoenda kubasa, but ukatasa kuvana vacho kunochinjaniswa vasikana vebasa kana 4 kana 5 mwana achikura, mwabva kwamuzara bari netsika dzake, mwabva uko netsika dzake. By the time mwana paanokura anenge ane so many different values. Haasona zoti pekutedza nepa, but akakura with a mother who is around, mwana yanenge akashepeka more, even they experience the love of the mother more. So in this book I mentioned kuti children, they benefit more from their parents' time than from their parents' money.
That's powerful.
Yeah, these days we think mwana angopiwa mari chete atobo.
But everything else.
So people, even including men, a lot of men, they don't respect vakadzi vasingaende kumabasa these days. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with women going to work, but women who do not go to work, vachingogara pamba vachengeta mhuri, those women are very important. Those women vari kutoshanda, but for a man it's a must. A man must hunt, anofanira kuvhima.
Hunting spirit.
Yeah, let's
explain how you speak about violence against wives.
But in this book I'm saying beating up a woman, it's a sign of weakness. One, a man is supposed to protect the woman. One of the main duties a husband, not to beat up the woman. Kana uchifila kuti wakapenga pa fight indonорwa na varume. Because pamasikiro atakaitwa general on average women are weaker in terms of bodies pane varume. So if you are violent against somebody who's weaker, it shows your own weakness. So in this book I'm speaking against violence against women, and also and a lot these days on Facebook. If a husband finds his woman cheating, antagonism with the other guy, might a gang up on one man. My point is, if your wife is cheating, why not cheat on Indian? Why not divorce in Indian? It's a wife, so deal with the wife. Don't deal with this guy. When I'm single, one. So there are certain issues that men these days they think it's not as a strength, but on the other end, it's not as a weakness. Like beating up a woman, it's a huge sign that you are weak. Simba, our power brings you are weak. Wakapusa. So it's a crusade against kupusa.
Yeah,
kupusa.
Still, Mubok, you also are bringing into perspective absent fathers, dad deprivation.
Yeah.
Inyaya that has stood the test of time, for lack of a better word. Yekunzi, we're saying Mama households, they're absent fathers, and hence why we're seeing violence. There's that dad deprivation. Vana, they don't have dads to look up to or to raise them or to really say, this is the man I can run to when I want to feel protected or to be guided. But from the book's perspective, give us a sense of what you mean by absent fathers, by that dad deprivation.
Yeah, the other time I was watching Barack Obama speak, and he listed about 75 behavioral problems with children that are caused by growing up without a father in the house. Psychologically, it was proven by scientists with growing up without a father in the house. There are a lot of elements that are seen. It's an element that is something to do with your behavior. And I can give you an example. My parents split up when I was before I was a teenager, I think around 11, 12. Because of that, when I went to school, I was very rebellious, especially against male teachers. because I was coming from a home where I was being raised by a strong woman, so I respected women. But male teachers, especially where I remember pane teacher in Guna women say my students is kana chifura corridor and so it is in the feel a bond kasangana im corridor apa ndisina kama msoro umrazo da ndikuchiki. I just felt the need I was just rebellious, so every 2 weeks ndakandiri kwa headmaster ndinetsa nema male teachers akadingarowa tainetsana kusvika hamene kuti uda kundiroverei ndanikori rebellious, especially against my teachers, against authority. Yes, especially yevarume. I was a radical feminist. So ndazoti right now ndatokura, even ndaiti ndikanzwa kuti paitika divorce ndangoti varume ndohabita varume ndiyatoningirina. Ndatokura manje ndazotanga kuverenga ma-psychology books because I read a lot of books, especially psychology. I started tracing, but what was my problem when I found a paper? Because I remember my male teachers. I noticed it was an issue. I grew up in a household because my parents split up and didn't find. So some of that affected. And there's black people usually we don't trace my problems because I'm not vera. So to know.
Is it because at that time kana kuti chiri ignorant country atinangwa yacho? That's not how we were raised. My environment had to go.
My environment positive. At times, food could spiritualize it. Because when I'm with the baby, I don't know what to. I need the money. I got a baby. And my mental health issues were quickly to blame spiritualism. But at times, when I'm to trace a big good problem, I can be a part. Fana yukuti mwana nokura baba wasimumba. It's a serious nigga. Fana yaito na Chris Rock. I quoted him in this book as well. He's an American comedian. Akataura danzi vana nyangwa karowa say at times they are so difficult to control. Hanzi mwana chano chika more than kurowa. Kunzi mira baba wako warukuya.
Tangunzi
in times wana baba warowe every day. I'm sure I remember even tichikura kuti vana mind wanyi rowa strike. Baba wanorowa count once per gore, count twice per gore, but basara ningere ngonzi kana zvanesa vanokubudisa musoro ngoti hey chichi kunetsa uku utona mwana kuti tango atodzokera back pa good behavior. So having an absent father is a serious issue, especially ukatasa nyika dzakaita seAmerica, South Africa, Jamaica, Brazil. Kunima high crime rates. 90-something% of those kids, they grow up without fathers. So in the problem my high crime rates and everything, it's caused near kuti mwana anokura kumba kusina baba. So the natural ananga father figure. So that's why they end up my gangsters because I don't that father figure. In the foot hands even vana vasikana chaicho vanokura kusina mafathers. Do one way kuti ananga 15 but other than 40 years.
Because I could check
that father figure
and that man.
Vezera rakantoona nge atwapana roda madhara atochena musoro anenge ndeni his boyfriend apa mudhara atochena musoro apa mwana ane 15.
Sad as it is, but ndozo kuitika. But explain yourself. You speak against phrase kuti toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anything called toxic masculinity. There's toxic behavior, not toxic masculinity. Because then I abuse mari yangu ndo tanga ku abuse mari nchi abuse vanhu nchishandisa vanhu because I've got money. Do you deal with my money or you deal with me? And did you deal with me? You don't take away my money, you deal with my behavior. The same thing kana munhu wechirume akaabuse strength yake kana akaabuse position yake, you don't deal with his masculinity, you deal with his behavior. So you know, there's a big crusade around the world where people are trying to say neutralize masculinity varume, even vanakomana vape zvidhori vasatamba vachita wrestling ava, and there's this line inonyepwa kunzi hanzi behavior yevana kana kuti vanakomana kuti vasafarire zvidhori hanzi it's socialization. That's a lie. By nature vanakomana vanongoda matoys ari zvine energy and kutamba vachita wrestling. Vasikana by nature ngomupaningiri matoys isari murumu, so paine tumatracks paine chimwana musikana anongonanga kuzvidhori. There's a story that I quote in the book yakaitika ku Canada. Research online, it's called the John Juan case. This child was born a boy and then cut my private parts by mistake during circumcision. Then the doctor suggested that they socialize him into a girl. So he didn't know that he thought that but every time I try to fix the dress, I varura. I tracks one. And even kutamba kutamba zvere wrestling zvakomana zvezvungurova norova uchiita sese matoilet chamaida kupinda toilet yevarume angasati kupinda toilet yevakadzi. So he was asking my parents, but what's wrong with me, because I don't feel like a girl. One. Yet akakura asingatomboziva akazvarwa ari mukomana. Akatozodzwa later kunzi you were born a boy, but we takakudza uri semusikana and you were socialized into being a girl, but it failed. Paakazozodzwa he committed suicide in 2014. One. So it debunks that myth yekuti hanzi socialization pane zvimwe zvinhu zvainokwanisa kushepa, but when it comes to human nature, kuva mukomana kuva musikana, you cannot socialize people to do that. It's just the same as saying
nature.
It's nature. That's why I will keep saying that human nature is primitive. As long as I'm 21st century, with the art, I'm 21st century, things have changed, blah, blah, blah. You can update your phone, you can update your computer, you can update it, but human nature can never be updated. Or it's not the masculinity in the problem. Because masculinity, channel in the right ways. A lot of positive. Because even with the protection, that masculinity energy, you need it. Even
it's
that violence,
diverted in
the right channels.
Right
They need to build my cities, you can protect. So the violence, couldn't negative violence is right to abuse or simba. Better violence which protect them. It's still violence, but if violence is positive. One. So those are the in this book. There's nothing called toxic masculinity. Toxic behavior, not toxic masculinity.
From one somber issue to another, let me take you back to when you were 12. As hard as it may be to talk about, you brought it up in your book.
Yeah.
The sexual abuse of Clive at the age of 12.
Yeah. Yeah, it happened because when my parents split up, my mother used to go on trips for a week or two, and she would leave us in the protection. Yeah, some women, wife and my friends, were supposed to protect us, but those women, 2 or 3 of those women who abused me. In fact, I don't want to preempt it because it's a very sensitive issue, that affect a lot. It's there in the book. So
it's
people
there in the book.
Buy the book
and read all about it.
Yeah.
And self-emasculation.
Not women who can a position as a man. Women don't have a problem with respecting you. I know respect a vega. Personal, you don't even I need respect. At times you should do respect. At times because you're not taking your position. Ukanazotora position yako kuti uri natso provider, even mkazi achienda kubasa kuti amaizi mari yako ijika to go and buy your makeup chichi wo provider unatso mhanya uita sese personal protection which protector mkazi wakana kutaka ngo respect ega pasina kana problem. You don't even force her, you don't even beg her to respect you, because I know kuti varume by nature we love respect, being respected, and kwa varume we translate respect as love. Kuti murume even yakasamuda kwangwa respect and to feel a ball and to feel out
Diripo.
Dini da.
Chibaba chacho.
Yeah, chibaba chacho. It's human nature.
And then I know you spoke about my issues akawanda mono. And for some of these my issues, mono will probably misconstrue or probably interpret or ti mono hafariri ma feminists. Is the author mono Clive Mukundu, the author, against feminism?
Yeah, I'm against the radical feminism. I'm not against feminism. Because feminism, history, it was started with white women, which rights from white men. And the reason why I mentioned white women and white men is because by the time of feminism, black people were still under slavery and colonization. Saka feminism yakatangwa like ku states, black people, both black men and black women, were still under slavery. They were still being forced to work. They could not own property. They could not vote. Saka feminism yakatangwa with white women vachido the power to vote, the right to vote, the right to own property, the right to go kubasa. One. But as I said, black people, both men and women, they signed up by force. So in its first form, feminism was okay. There's what they call first wave feminism, but a second wave feminism. My beef is with third wave feminism, radical feminism. We want what all men are dogs.
Men are trash.
Men are trash, and then the toxic masculinity. Patriarchy was there to oppress women. Patriarchy was an act of love, and I know
So are you for patriarchy?
Yes. Yeah, patriarchy was an act of love. Let me explain. Before technology, kusati kwane matypewriter, motikari, kwainzi kuenda kubasa, going to work meant serious hard work. Paidigwa, you'll be chasing my animals, you'll be in the kwaigara kwini mahondo, so you needed the men to, because by nature we cannot rule that out. Men are stronger than women. That's why even sports it's because men are stronger. So it was obvious that men had to protect order. Even right now, because of technology, kutype munhu ari patypewriter, ari computer, kudaira phone, that's going to work these days. But kudara kwainzi going to work meant serious hard work. And remember, there was no birth control pills. So waingobata nhumbu pese pese, how were you going to work wakadaro? Remember, kwamusina temples, kwamusina kanorma periods, how were you going to work?
But people will say kuti, in as much as you're saying that vakadzi vakawanda make up the biggest population muma farms, ndo vanoshanda like ma farms, they till the land. Saka a lot of them, but they fall pregnant, but they still go out there and
that's a good point. But ukatarisa vakadzi vazotanga kupinda in all those jobs after technology, because right now kurima kwacho makushandisa magejo, makushandisa matractor, even kuhondo chaiko kudhara before technology, the 99% yevanoenda kuhondo were men. Because vakadzi ansitaura kuti hakuna vakadzi a few vakasimbo variko, but there are very few. But pakazouya technology pekuti kuuraya munhu now means kungopula trigger, pa, you are fighting. Vakadzi vakatanga kuwanda even kuma-armies, kupolice, kutanga kuenda kuhondo. So basically I'm saying kuti technology ndo yakapinza vakadzi into the workforce. It's not even feminism, it's technology. Because with technology, women can now just work, achingodrive, achingoningirina. But kudhara kwainzi kuenda kubasa, it meant hard work. That's why even up to now, such jobs like building is still 99% men. Bricklayers is still 99% men. Madhoda bin is still 99% men. And you won't find vakadzi vachikomplaina kuti tikudo mabasa kumadhoda bin ariko mabasa endai vangano variko kuma-builders ariko mabasa ekunosimudza mazvidhinda, but vangano vakadzi vada kuenda kunobuilder.
But despite that, Mono, in as much as urikutaura highly energized or anoda a lot of the physical industry, anoda a lot of physical, tikatarisa white collar industry, let's go into the boardroom, for instance. This is a very contentious issue. It is highly debatable, but women are coming out and saying kuti hatikupiwa ma-positions akawanda muma boardroom, a lot of leadership positions. Men are taking up those spaces too much. Women are not given enough opportunities. And at the same time, there are other women who are saying, kuti, why should we give you women those opportunities? Because it should be by merit. And vakawanda vamwe venyu hamuskuita come to the table. Don't you think some of these issues ndo arikuita futi create a lot of this violence that we're seeing in society, whereby hapana issues to do with looking at issues of equality, how you're balancing that, equity, how you're balancing that, how you're also balancing men and women in some of those industry?
Yeah, that's a very good question. when it comes to my opportunities like my white collar jobs, I support women with the workers as long as they are qualified, as long as they are getting in on merit, not someone just because she's a woman.
Tokenism.
Yeah, because we also have the same problem even in the music industry, because a number of women are not going to complain about why is it Panon's top 5 artists in the country, why is it these days are Panawakaz. But what are those positions? I couldn't board to sit down, let's look for the top 5 artists. It's something to not through merit. You know, Kunana states, Kunana Beyonce. I know she's go for a show not because she's a woman. I know she's because I know pull my crowds. So when it comes to my white collar jobs, you are can manage pin on merit no problem. But in the problem here, Muna Azu simply because she's a woman. Even Yangwasinga Gone Basaracho, that one I'm against it. But Kanamkaza I Gona Basaracho find that pin. That one also comes to Nyano Karo complain way Kunzan's wage difference.
Wage gap
difference. That one, that issue was addressed a long time ago in most countries, except for a few gender apartheid countries, like my eastern countries, practice Muslim. But in most westernized societies, that gender wage gap. Raku konzerwa ma career choices. Women usually our doctors must STEM professions. I know demand. I know are highly paying jobs like my engineering. Usually women and the men love things and women love people. So when it comes to career choices, because one of the teacher who primary school, teacher who ECD, my social sciences with people, and those jobs they don't pay much. In the engineering, but even if you go to my Scandinavian countries like Sweden, they are very what do they call those countries? Egalitarian, very feminism is serious.
Because they
those countries
50-50.
Yeah,
even when you look at the legislation.
But in such countries, wakazi veku my choices are they are more on the side of those jobs which are considered feminine. But in those countries they equal opportunities and a clear demarcation. Majority of workers are always one of my jobs which are considered feminine and which are less paying.
But speaking of that, is it a question here, Kuti? There's nothing wrong with feminism, but there's everything wrong with how it's applied. Why I'm asking this is because you brought up my Scandinavian countries. Sweden, if you look at Sweden, if you look at Norway, you look at Denmark, my economies are very good. And look at it like in Sweden, they're very pro women. And still, you've still seen Kuti, even my rates a domestic violence, they're some of the lowest. Could it be an issue, Kuti, isusu kuma developing countries, to cooperate some of these my policies, to cooperate some of these my activities, my events, my issues here to do with whether it's feminism or to do with gender equality, but we lack in how to understand the implementation and how we incorporate, putting into consideration my environment, edu, society, edu, as Africans. Is this where we're failing?
That's a very, very good point. Because, like I've said before, I said I support feminism very much, but I'm very much against radical feminism. Because radical feminism, it puts all women in the same bracket. More as if you've got the same issues. The same issues, first when women are in Zimbabwe, it's totally different from the issues, first when workers are states. It's totally different from the issues, first when women in Afghanistan. Those are totally different issues. But radical feminism tells you that workers in the world are being oppressed. Like you mentioned, Sweden, they support women's rights a lot and everything. And I also support that, which is good. Because I've got a daughter, I've got sisters, I was raised by women, so I support feminism. But what I'm against is radical feminism that tells you that all men are potential rapists, all men are dogs, all men are trash. where you now cause a fight, a battle between the sexes, which is that's why I'm against radical feminism. But when it comes to feminism, I'm very much in support. But my other point is a lot of things that feminists were crying for, they've been achieved. So right now it's time for them to celebrate rather than to keep on crying for more. Because you've noticed that most of them are going to because right now problems on both sides. So I think right now it's high time we stop. Let's just say if organization for everybody. We fight for them. One. Because right now a lot of issues they fight when feminists they have achieved those. So it's time to celebrate.
So
it's not time to look for more issues. That's oppression. So why is it? We are not supposed to be fishing and looking for to my issues. Let's look for real issues. Like Nato mentioned Mukundu, feminism, this feminism, that ignore certain issues. Like for example, right now in Zimbabwe, my private schools, my white private schools, white people are paid more than black people, but we don't look at those issues. Ignore some of my very big issues, which are true fun to taris, and then the point when there is a ignore my issues are common. So my issues out there being ignored. So answering your question again, I support feminism, but I don't support radical feminism.
And while we are trying to fix that, I hope we will fix the culture of reading, and we'll fix the culture of supporting local and getting the time to have more of these conversations so that we can fix society to make it better. Would like to say thank you to our birthday boy. 50 years.
Yeah.
This is a milestone. Half a century. Half a century and still going strong. 32 years in the music industry. We celebrate you, Mono. You have been a music producer. You have helped so many artists arise in their trade. You have been on many platforms, my discussion program, radio, television, speaking about my different issues and trying to make sure that you bring that impact to the industry. And you also adding to that CV the issue of speaking on the boy child, which I believe is very strong. It's powerful. It's a very powerful message.
Yeah.
So, in closing, I mean, 32 years, Mama Gitare, 50 beautiful years. How do you feel?
I feel blessed because there's a time in my life where I was so confident that I'll never reach 40. Because all my friends on Ratangana music, they all passed away before they reached 35. So I was 100% confident that I'll never reach 40. That's why even when I reached 40, I released an album around 40 to celebrate. So I decided when I'm turning 50, when I started noticing that I'm going towards 50, I decided I should do something. So that personal COVID, I wanted to do a very big event, but because of COVID, we were forced to stream down everything. But still, I'm very much excited to be turning 50.
And excited the fact that despite COVID, you took the time to have an opportunity to pen, release another book. And while we're at it, on a lighter note, you're so youthful. You don't look 50. What's the secret?
I'll be lying if I say there's a secret. I really don't know. Well, some people say you mustn't drink, but I've been drinking since I was 19. Some people say you mustn't smoke. I smoked weed for a long time. I think it's just I got my genes, and it happens a lot to musicians.
Well, we celebrate you, Mono. We celebrate your friendship. We celebrate your mentorship. We celebrate your music. We celebrate your life today. So, happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thanks to Zimbabwe for the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zimbabwe.
Remember to buy the book. It's online. It's already online.
It's already online?
Yeah.
So they can actually get there. Is there a link that you probably can share?
Yeah, I will share the link on the Facebook platform and on Twitter and Instagram.
Wonderful stuff. It's been beautiful. It's been amazing. And here's to 50 more years and more books and celebrating life itself. Thank you, Mono.
Thank you very much.
Monolio Studio, the harmony of quality and professionalism.